Today we're going to take a look at the Angular 2 CLI and how to add a web part to SharePoint server. We'll begin by working locally with the Angular CLI to create a to-do list application, and then we will deploy it to SharePoint inside of a content editor web part. Our first step is to use the ng-new command to create a new project with the Angular 2 CLI. Okay, the ng-new command completed. We now have our empty folder populated with something called to-do. We'll go down one directory into to-do, take a look. We see a number of things here, including a package.json file and a lot of the Angular CLI boilerplate. Of course, you can go to the Angular CLI website to learn a little bit more about it. There's the install, the new, change directory, and ng-serve. Pretty easy. So let's go ahead and do ng-serve. Okay, so now the local development server is up and running. If we open a tab over to localhost 4200, we can see a message that says app works. If we start a new console, we can switch folders over to the to-do application and open Visual Studio Code. Here I have a number of extensions running. I loaded the John Papa Angular extensions package, which includes a number of other things. I'd highly recommend this. Huge time saver. You get a lot of IntelliSense, color coding, linting, JS hint. There's a lot, path IntelliSense, just a whole litany of different plugins to help make Angular development a little bit easier. In the folder where we're working, let's go navigate under src app. And what we'll see over here is the code for app works. Now if we go ahead and change that, and maybe give it a different message, such as hello world, and hit save, we'll see that the app reloads and our new message is visible because ng-serve has a watcher, and it's doing a file watch that every time that file changes, it will recompile and reload the page. Fantastic. So here we can start building out the components for a to-do list. And we'll want a little bit of data for our array of to-do items. This will be our sample data to get the interface started. Now we'll go ahead and auto format. We'll have a new to-do item, which is going to track the ability to add a new item at the bottom. We're going to have an archive function. We're going to have a remain function. And finally, we're going to have an add to-do function, which will add a new item to the collection. So over here for add to-do, this is probably one of the easier ones. What we're going to do here is this.todos.push. We're going to add a new item. That item will be defined with a name, this.newTodo, and a default value of done is false. And then finally at the bottom we'll say this.newTodo equals empty string as a way of clearing it out. Go ahead and format document. And the whole time we're doing this, we can see our coaching and hint. I mean, here it says instead of var, use the word let or const. It doesn't like us using var. Identifier T is never reassigned. Use const instead of let. So we're getting all this coaching while we're working with TypeScript that the plugins are helping direct us towards better coding habits. Now over here for remain, we want to count how many remaining items there are. So we're going to have a counter that we return. And we're going to have a little bit of a for each going on this.todos. The element, we'll call it letter T. If T.done is false, then we'll want to increment our counter. So I'm going to format again here. And again, we have the const or let. We'll use let because we're modifying the data. Up here is going to be very similar, but instead of doing a counter, we're going to modify the collection. So Right now we have a collection of to-dos. We're going to put that into old to-dos, and we'll take the new one, clear it out, and we'll loop through the old one, and if the old ones aren't done, then we'll push it into the current one. There we go. Looks pretty good. Change var to let. Old habits. And it's never modified, so it would like us to call it a constant. There we go. Nice work. All right. So let's open our folder. We'll pop over to the HTML template for the view. And here we need to make some of this visible. So remain is a function out of todos.length. Let us know how many are out there. We're going to have a link from the click event for that. We'll execute our archive function. Two out of three. All right. We'll do a couple horizontal rules in here. We're going to add a form. The submit event of the form will go to add to do. Inside of here, we're going to get a submit button. And for this, we'll do the football in a box ng model equals new to do. We're seeing some errors show up. Input, inline template, form tag, the attribute, or missing standalone. Oh, I see. Okay, so we have to give it a name attribute because there's a form tag involved. Perfect. There we go. And we'll keep adding to this with ul, li, span, input text. And we'll go ahead and break that out a little bit. We're going to have a checkbox in here too. And that one we're going to bind over to t.done and t.name, where t.done is the checkbox and t.name is the value. Okay. Up here we need to do a repeat, and those are now ng4. Let t of to-dos. So now we have our repeating list. We can archive items. We can add new items. And as we check, the counts are updated. Very nice. Very nice. Right. And that will be void open close at the top. Go ahead and reload that. Unexpected token. And there we are. So we got our archive button working nicely. And one last thing, let's just go ahead and do an autofocus on the text box for adding so that when the page loads, we can type new ideas here, and it's easier to work with. Excellent. Looks pretty good to me. Cool. So now we have a to-do list running locally. But what we want to do is deploy it into SharePoint. Now for that, we're going to navigate over to Site Contents, locate Site Assets, and make a new folder named To Do for our application. And that's where we're going to upload our code. We also need to have a page for displaying it. So let's go ahead and do Add a Page, To Do. And we're going to insert from the Media category a Content Editor web part. Excellent. Now, we need to prepare the code that we're going to upload. So let's navigate over here. And we're going to learn about the ng build command. ng build has a number of parameters. We can do ng build -prod -aot -d, and we're going to want to put in the address for where these files will live. This is our deploy URL. So in that case, HTTP portal, site assets, to do, looks good. And I'm going to add a -w at the end for the watcher. So this is doing a production, sort of reduced, smaller footprint with AOT, ahead of time compilation, and a deploy URL of the SharePoint document library site assets with a subfolder. Now that ng build is complete, if we navigate over to our folder, we're going to see a new folder called dist for distribution. Going inside of there, we see that we have 10 items adding up to 500K. Let's go ahead and take those and add them to our site. All uploaded except for Styles, who has an empty byte size of 0. One way to resolve that would be to come over to our project, find Styles CSS, maybe add to-do app, margin 5 pix, save. Saving the source code triggered a new build. And now in our distribution folder, we have updated media. So let's go ahead and copy those up to our site. Excellent. So we can right-click on the index file, copy link address, edit our content editor web part, and point it at index.html. We can see our application running, but there is one issue. We're missing the save button for the page. And if we press F12 to take a look at the console, we have a lot of error messages about polyfills and script resource. And these error messages have to do with parameter count mismatch. A lot of different things happening with polyfills. So I did some digging into this one and found out it has to do with the polyfills TS over here, and specifically the ES6 string item. Here on Stack Overflow we can see a conversation about SharePoint and Angular 2 CLI, and the resolution was to remove this import ES6 string from polyfills TS. So over in our original code, we're going to go ahead and comment out that one line, hit save. That will trigger a new build with our watcher. Okay, so our distribution folder's been updated. We'll take all of that and copy it up to SharePoint. Now for our to-do page, let's try to navigate there again. Now for our to-do page, let's navigate there again. We'll go ahead and edit the page. Insert a content editor web part again. Edit properties. Copy the address to index.html. And now we have a save button. And if we look at our console, there's no error messages. We can check items. The counts are updated correctly. We can archive an item off the list. We can add new ideas to the list. The checking updates the count. And we have all major CRUD operations happening. Looks pretty slick. And that's running Angular 2 CLI with AOT, ahead of time compilation, against SharePoint Server 2013. Thanks for watching.